we had about 5 streets in a very small neighborhood. So, there was one main laneway that went down to a huge dairy farm at the end. And that was the street that we lived on, or the laneway, as we used to call it. It was never paved. It had no street lights. But by the time I was 16, there was about 100 houses on it. But it was a good, probably 1.5 kilometers long. And so going from the main street, the main road, down to our house, we were about halfway or maybe 3/4 of the way down the lane. And we were surrounded by farms. So there was nothing around us. It was just open fields for forever. Right? Like literally, you could, ride your horse or your motorbike or your dirt bike or whatever. And there was the odd farm here and there dotted around, but we didn't have a lot of subdivisions or anything then. So it was just a very small community. Most of the people on the street were immigrants. So we had quite a few Scottish, English. I don't really recall any Irish folks on our street, oddly enough, but we had quite a number of Italians, Polish, Ukrainian. We even had 2 families from the islands. One was from Jamaica, and the other one was from Trinidad. So we had a couple of black families on our street, and we had a number of indigenous families on our street too. So it was kind of a really cool little neighborhood to be in. Everybody was friends. Everybody knew each other, and that was a bit of a problem as a kid because we were always really, really quite naughty as kids. So, we couldn't really get away with anything because, of course, everybody on the street knew who we were, like every parent, every adult. I delivered the little local newspaper, so my brother and I, everyone knew who we were. So, of course, if we were getting up to no good, it was just a quick, phone call to, my mother or my grandparents, and we were tattled on. So, but it was a great little neighborhood for going out to trick or treat because in that little community, there was maybe a total of 300 families, and everyone celebrated. Like, I think there might have been 1 or 2 houses that would shut off their lights and didn't do the candy thing. But it was so great that we would go out with pillowcases, go home, dump them out, and go back out again. And we'd get that much stuff. Like, it was kind of ridiculous. But, our costumes were homemade. My mom was a pretty good seamstress at the time, so my brother and I had some pretty great little costumes over the years. They were always homemade, but they were pretty good. Like, my mom was pretty good at doing these things. So, we went out as all sorts of things. I don't know. Do you guys remember, like, what was your favorite costume when you were a kid growing up? Was there one that you really sort of remember today that stuck in your mind, or?
I dressed up as a witch.
Oh, okay.
And again, it was honestly, it was a simple outfit. We had when we lived at that particular hotel that I told you about before with the Victorian, we did actually host a Halloween party right there for all the kids. And it was a lot of fun. And I did dress up as a witch with the broom and the oh my gosh, it was great. It was so much fun wearing just a black felt skirt and a top. But it was great. What do you remember dressing up as?
For me, it was just a simple white sheet with the white sheet.
Everybody did that. Everybody.
But it's fun. It's fun.
It's so simple, but it was great. Yeah.
But my oldest son, that was his very first costume when he was 3. He wanted to be a ghost, and that was it. And it was literally he wanted to be a ghost. And we didn't go out trick-or-treating at the time. We gave candy out at the door, and that was great for him. He loved doing that. And I think for him, like I had a lot of fun. I had some really great costumes. Like, I've got some photos still of my brother and I. I think I'm about 5, and I'm a witch. And I've got a plastic mask on my face, rest of the costume my mom made. It was really cute. And then my brother was a clown, which was totally appropriate for him. And then the next costumes I remember were later on. I was older. See, I don't really remember anything in between that. I remember I was about maybe 9 or 10, and I went out in my saloon girl / AKA pioneer attire, but it was, with the big high brimmed hat and it was, it was more like Little House on the Prairie kind of thing. And my brother was a leprechaun. And then in grade 6, I went out as a Jack's potato chip bag. I made my own costume. Yeah, totally. I made it from craft paper and put it all together and painted it like a Jack's, with the orange and blue stripes, the old Jack's potato chips. And I remember, too, my girlfriend and I at the time, we went out as Siamese twins. And that was hilariously funny because we got this gigantic 2 pairs of really big pants. And my mom sewed them into one pair with a leg. So our legs went through one leg in the middle. And then we had, and the same with a shirt. So it was so funny trying to keep up with, and we were, I think we were in about grade 7 then, and I remember trying to keep up with everyone else, and it was just so funny because, of course, we're trying to, hop along with this outfit on, but it was great fun, and it was a really good neighborhood where we were to grow up, and it was a lot of fun, and even my kids, like my oldest son, because I think, he wanted to be a ghost when he was little, and by the time he was 6, we did Beetlejuice. He wanted to be Beetlejuice.
Awesome.
So we did Beetlejuice. Actually, I think he was about 5 then. And then when he was 6, I made him this phenomenally adorable bat costume. He wanted to be a bat. And so I made him this really cute bat costume with the, big wings and everything. And our local mall at the time used to have a Halloween contest, and he won first prize for his little bat. And so it was really cute. And then, because I've got the 3 kids, like, honestly, I can't even remember, like, my middle son went out as Link once, so we got him the wig and the ears and the whole 9 yards, and he did Link from Zelda. And my youngest one was just totally happy going out as Power Rangers, anything Power Rangers or Spider-Man. He didn't care. Or he went out as an Imperial Stormtrooper and a couple of other things. He always wanted the more elaborate costumes, that kid. And then my middle son, too, I remembered him also going out as SpongeBob. And that was so fun. Like, he was about 9, right? So I made him this SpongeBob, literally from cardboard boxes, and put it all together. And then we painted it, and he put his arms through, and his face came through, and his legs at the bottom, right? We just left the box open, so it was. But yeah, so he went out as SpongeBob, and yeah, so they, it was always fun. And at that time, of course, we had a bit of the dilemma of, if I'm taking the kids out trick-or-treating, my husband at the time was often not home from work yet because it was still early, and he didn't often get home till 7 or 8 o'clock at night. So my older son, he was 10 years older than my middle son. He would stay home. So he got in the real, like, he loved to stay home, and he would dress up as the Grim Reaper and all these things. And instead of having candy at the door, we would put hay bales and stuff out front, and he would literally sit out there frozen as the Grim Reaper with this big scythe in his hand. And the candy would be in a bowl beside him, and you'd watch how many kids were like, were terrified to come, because they weren't sure if he was like a real person or, just like a Halloween prop.
Right, just a mannequin.
Yeah, and the little kids were pretty good. And I remember one night, it was a little bit later in the evening. It was probably like 7:30, and most of the little kids were done, and the teenagers were coming around. And we never had a problem with that. Like, I don't even care if adults come trick-or-treating, right? It's just like, have fun. But this young couple, they were probably 15 or 16 together, and they came up, and I was just inside the front door, and my son was out there, and I could see them at the end of the driveway, and the girl's going, go, you go first. And the boy's like, I'm not going, you go, right? So they both decided to come up, and of course my son at that point started to stand up. The boy ran and screamed and left his girlfriend there.
Oh.
I was just like, I just killed myself laughing. I'm like, oh my gosh. And of course she's yelling at him, you leave me here to die. It was so much fun. So,
well, I remember taking my daughter trick-or-treating, and I remember this one house, the same idea, the fellow that owned the house, he wrapped himself like a mummy and stood in front of his garage door. Now, the trick was that his wrappings perfectly matched the color scheme of the garage door, and he was literally invisible.
Oh, that's clever.
And
That's really
he
clever.
would stand there stock still until the kids came up, and then he would move and jump out and yell at them. And same thing, these kids would pee their pants. They were so startled. But it was perfect because he blended in so much with that garage door. It was hilarious.
Yeah.
But and that I think is, what makes those memories for us. Like it's it makes for the fun of Halloween. And it's unfortunate this year. Like I don't know, I know they're not really calling off Halloween, but at the same time it obviously won't be the same. Now, for me, as an adult now, I'm usually working, at, like I say, this time of year. And Halloween night is my only night off.
Oh, it is?
So, yeah. So I actually
surprised by that,
I just close the house.
Yeah, I'm surprised by that too.
Yeah, we don't do tours on Halloween night because for the most part, people are busy with their children and things like that, right? So I know there's tours that do run Halloween night, but we just found that we don't get a big enough demand for it because the area we're in, there's a lot of families. And so there's a lot of people, taking their kids out. We have run later tours on Halloween. So we've actually run like a 10 o'clock at night tour till midnight. And then we will get a pretty good crowd out at that point, but, earlier in the day. But I needed kind of a day off because usually what happens for me at this time of year is that, we have all the walks. And then we have all of the events at the museum. I'm doing mummy unwrappings and lectures, and we're doing we do Frightmare in the Falls, which sometimes falls on the Halloween weekend or the weekend right after. So for us, it's just like we just have to have a break. We have to have a day. So we take Halloween off. It's our day off, and we don't put the lights on. We don't do candy, and we just sit and we relax. Right, and we don't have a lot of little kids where we are here in our neighborhood. We live on an island here, so the community at hand where we are is really the only group of houses here. There's just 4 little streets, and there's not too many small kids here, so we're not in a part of town where there is a lot of families and kids, so they don't come here. We're sort of isolated where we are. In the little town, obviously, in the downtown core, people do trick-or-treat. But over where we are here, we don't get as much of it. There's just not the families or the people living near enough to do it. So they don't really come around, which is okay. Like I said, it gives me a break. But, my kids are all grown now, and they don't really celebrate either anymore. None of them have kids of their own at this point. And my one son living in Beijing, they don't celebrate Halloween in China. It's not a Chinese thing. It's oddly, when I look at the sort of statistics as to how we celebrate Halloween, I think the closest would be the UK, right? And even there, it's not huge like it is here, right? It's like there's some celebration, but it's not the same as North America.
It's not the way. When I was living in England, you'd get the odd person coming to the door, knocking with asking trick or treat, around 6 or 7 o'clock at night. And it depends. It really depended on where you lived. If it got out of happens. You know, we lived, like I said, in a pretty suburban area where things didn't get out of hand, where you just had the local kids sort of asking for candy, and, you know, that was it. But